Welcome back, guys. So, part 3, and moved on a little bit from part 2. Basically did what I said I was going to do, focusing primarily on the axles. So, when we left off, we had the front axle in place, we had the rear axle in place, and I've built up the center two drive axles, and obviously got all the airbags in. Got a few bits of these airlines in as well, and got the 2 fuel tanks in. So yeah, pushed ahead really well. The process was exactly the same for these 2 axles as it was for this. Others, the fact they're not steering. Did a bit of research, figured out that the rearmost axle does counter steer from the front, so put a little bit of deflection in on the back because it doesn't steer as much as the front, but it steers enough just to avoid scrubbing the tyres out. What I did notice as well, and you'll see that with the white fogging marks from super glue, is that I had obviously left this axle pivoting on these points here. Give me a pointy. So these points here, I hadn't glued any of this in. I left that loose. Thankfully I had. It's a good tip for you, because what actually happens as you build this up, then this axle has rotated back probably about 20 or 30 degrees from the horizontal. So when you come to put the top link in here to here, and then you've got this anti-sway link here, then you have to basically rotate the axle around forward. So you're pushing the diff joint here down, and bringing the top joint forward to get the right distance between here and here. And then obviously when I got it to the point I needed it to be, I applied quite a bit of glue to these joints here and here, just to help the axle adhere to the angle I need it to be in. So all in all, it was a bit tricky, but it went together okay. These 2 axles went together fine. I haven't actually glued any of these prop shaft joints in. They just clip in beautifully. I did, for these brake chamber activators here and here, I did drill them out with the same drill bit I used for the other 2 axles as well. And then there is a small bit of photo etch to go on these steps, which went on no bother at all. So that's where we've gotten to. So we're now actually at part 11. And hopefully that kind of explains it to anyone wanting to build this kit. You do need to take your time, but you do need to make sure you get the angle of that right, otherwise it won't go together very well. I also made a mistake in that I got, obviously the drawings can be a little confusing, and I put this anti-sway bar bracket on the wrong side of the axle. So basically I had the axle tube the wrong way around. They're equal in distance because obviously the diff's in the center of the axle, but I should have had it on this side, and it just doesn't show it very well in the instructions. So my fault anyway, but I'm not worried about it. Did the old trick of putting a bit of liquid cement on it, let it sit for a couple of minutes, and then just gently ease this piece off, stuck it on the other side. Got a little bit of repair work to do there, but it's nothing deadly. But that fixed that. So that is the whole transmission complete. We're now going on to the build up. So if we look at steps 11, we've got the pieces for the radiator, and we've got the pieces for the sort of the landing deck that leads up to the 5th wheel. So that's what we're on at the moment. I've cleaned all these parts up, and they go together reasonably well. They're reasonably clean of flash, he says that, but there is a little bit here just on that point there. So all in all, this kit's not too bad. I have to say, it really isn't too bad at all. The detail is fantastic. There we go, nice clip. The quality of the moulding's good. There has been flash. There's been flash in quite a few parts, especially some of the parts that have been slide moulded. They've been a bit flashy. it's just scraped away with my scalpel blade, which is not a problem, but it's just something to be aware of. And I suppose if you take the price of this kit retail, which is in the region of £130, you don't want to be paying for flash. You know, it's just something you shouldn't ought to be having to deal with. However, we are where we are. Right, G15, so that radiator just sits nicely into there. Should sit nicely into there, he says. Try it the other way around. Oh, there we go. Right, let me move this out of the way. So, spot of glue on either end. And the other thing I was wondering is the length of my video builds. I try and go into enough depth that it can show the model any pitfalls, any easy bits, hard bits, whatever. But it's something that I was looking for you, my subscribers and viewers, to give me some feedback on, is how do you perceive my video builds in regards to the time I take and the detail I show. That's not going to fit. There you go, perfect example of why you should test fit in the first instance. There we go. This piece in here. Yeah, so anyone that's watching, if you've watched a few of my video builds, very keen to know your thoughts on the length of my builds, the subject matter, and anything you might think could be an improvement to how I present my model builds. You know, video work, editing. Bearing in mind, I work full time, so this is just a hobby, both modeling and doing YouTube. Right, so that one goes on that way. So yeah, feel free to write down in the comment section. As I always say, I always read the comments, and I always take time to try and reply to everyone that's commented on my videos. So that's the general ask for today, is general impressions of my videos, any improvements, likes, dislikes, etc. And I'll basically try and improve the channel for everyone that's watching. Right. So this piece fits in there. It's supposed to fit in there. I fear that is a bit flashy again. And there's a couple of injector pin marks in there. Still a very tight fit. Get it in square. There we go. So it just needed a little bit of trimming. So we may as well just have a quick file of this one whilst we're at it. Now this one is sided, basically, or handed, however you want to call it, because there is a hole on the side here to attach the air horns to. That hole needs to go uppermost. So just find that in there, seat that one. In there and slide it in. Yeah, it's a good fit. Alright, cement. Gentle push to get it all together. That is one hell of a size of radiator. Right, so next thing to go is this. And did I clean it up? Yes, I cleaned that bit up anyway. So that piece just sits on there. Again, time you're extra thin, you just have to touch the side of the part. Capillary action takes it underneath. Check that it's square to the front. Excellent. 2 air horns. Now if you really want to super detail this, you could take a reamer and ream out the end here. If you want it to be a little more economical with your time, paint it black and it'll look like it's a recess. Right, we'll need the tweezers for this. So a little drop of glue. Use these flat nose tweezers, that'll give us a bit better grip on this part. And then just gently work it in. There we go. Just get those underneath there. Now you could glue these air horns on in the first instance and then put the part on. It's 6 2/3. Build a preference. It's just the way I'm doing it. I imagine these fellas, when they sound, will be pretty loud. And to be fair, with a vehicle this side, you need a decent size of horns. Let people know you're coming, because it's not going to stop in a hurry. And every now and again you get a part that's a pain in the hoop. There we go. And nice and symmetrical. Yep. Right, so radiator. Now we've got a photo etch bit, which I will do in a minute, but what we will do is... oh dear. Look at that. Too much talking, not enough concentrating. That goes on that side. Yeah, I've put them on the wrong way around. Hey ho. We'll try that way around, shall we? To be fair, I've done that a couple of times with this kit. Right, so that's that way there. So that's definitely properly done now. Right, we'll let this just dry up a minute. And we'll get this rear landing legs done. Now there's a couple, 4 bits of photo etch to put on this as well. But we'll put this together first. So you've got E41, E47, and you've got G28, which is this part here. That just goes into there, and then you've got E10, which goes on the end. Now there are ejector pin marks on these, but nobody's going to see them, and they really are in an absolute awful place to get them out, so I'm not really fussed about them at all. Right, make sure we've got this orientated properly and it locks in nicely to its locating points. Good firm positive fit. A bit of extra thin. I'll just move it off the instructions and on the mat so we can get it dead flat. Make sure that E10 is pushed firmly into it. And then make sure that this G28 part is actually located properly. Just gently push it down, seat it home. And then we'll just set that to one side. And if you've got a mat with marks on it, then you can eyeball it to see that it's parallel and it's square. Which this one is, just about. Happy enough with that? Yeah. Right. So, photo etch time. So we need MC3. So the way Hobbyboss has done this is they've called each photo etch sheet a couple of letters. So this is MC. There's another one here that I've been using is MB. But we need MC3, which is this part here. And we've got to put a 90-degree bend, well, nearly 90-degree bend in there. And you've got a profile of the bend there, so it's probably about maybe 87, 88 degrees maybe. So, I'll just cut it. In fact, what I'll do is retrieve. I have a small piece of acrylic that I use for cutting. I cut into the acrylic because the acrylic will give for the knife blade, but it will not let the photo etch flex and bend out of shape. If you were to cut it on the cutting mat, then the mat will deform and you'll end up with a bend in your part. So really fine connection points, so they cut very, very easily with a sharp knife or scalpel. What I still will do though is we'll use bend the part. Never mind. We'll use a fine side of a file, a sanding stick, and that's quite a hard sanding stick, so it doesn't deform that much. And we'll just sand any of the connection point off. And what we'll also do is we'll just set the sanding stick down onto the part and sand the back of it just to give it a bit of a key so the super glue will adhere to it. Now if this was particularly tough photo etch, annealing it would be something to do just to make it easier to bend. Right, with my hold and fold from the small shop, we'll just take this edge here, put the part in. You'll notice there is a line on the part. That is etched into the part, and that is your fold line. So you want to move the fold line up to the edge of the bender, making sure that it's parallel, and then just bend the part over. There we go. Not quite 90 degrees. Unscrew it, take the part out, and let's have a look at it. So basically we've gone a little too far, so all you need to do is you can just set it back on the bender, hard surface, and then just gently push on the corner of the joint just to relax the bend a little, and offer it up again onto the instructions. And when you're happy with it, which I think we probably are there, we can look at attaching this. So it would appear that that goes on. How does this go on then? That goes on that way. So does that go? Right. So that obviously goes on the top like so. And then that goes down the front like so. Now whether that's supposed to land right on the radiator or not, I don't know, but we definitely are. If you look, we're definitely there and thereabouts on the angle. So I'm happy with that. Because, so we'll just double check that again. That goes on that way. Yeah. Okay. Because it's quite a big part, what I will do is we'll put the glue straight onto the part. Again, don't need to squeeze the tube very much, it will flow naturally. Make sure we've got it properly orientated. Make sure we have the part dead center. And that's gone down pretty well first time. Yeah, happy with that. That's the part on. Right, now that we've done that, we can get this part onto here. So, looking at the instructions, we've got this nut here, goes in the hole in the center chassis, and then that goes to that arm. Now whether that glues in or not, I don't know. We'll leave it there for now, and we'll make sure that we get the right attachment. It certainly looks like that arm should come down and lock into it. We'll check over the instructions. Yeah, it does appear that the arm comes down on and glues onto the top, so we'll do that in a minute. Right, we've got these four parts to go on here, so G23, J36 and C8, and we've also got a little bit of photo etch to bend here, which looks like part of a mudguard, as well as the photo etch to bend to put on this landing deck here. So I'm just going to cut this photo etch out. This part's here and these parts, and we'll come back when I'm all ready. I'll probably attach these parts to the chassis, and we'll come back when we're ready to turn over the page, which will be part 12. So be back shortly. We're back and we're at step 12. Now I've already done this part here. So we can look at that. That's just gone in there rather nicely. A bit of a difficult bend because it's a double bend, but it's like 2 double bends. But easily manageable with a good old hold and fold. The next thing we have to do is we've got these air receivers here and here. We've got the 5th wheel here, we've got a locker here, and we've got the battery box here. Again, there's been a bit of bending, a photo etch, part MC1. So I've already pre-bent that with a view to try and keep it moving on. So first things, we'll start with this, seems it's at the bottom here. So we need to come in here and glue MC1 down to this. And the fit's really, really nice. I have dry fitted it. 2 notches at the back, and they fit perfectly. And then that part just bonds straight down onto there. Like so. It's quite a soft part, to be honest with you. In the middle, it's quite heavily etched. So when you're bending it, you have to be very, very careful you don't twist and warp the middle piece. Again, the photo etch bender really makes an odds. Right, that's that piece in. Then we've got this handle here. Now you'll notice that I haven't cleaned the burr off it, and I'll wait until it is fully cured before I do that. It's just the way I've always done it. And it just means that you've got the support of the part being glued in. It's actually a bloody awful fit as well. It's a little small for the hole. It's gone right through. So if we hold it upside down and orientate it to the right position, just push it back through so it's level with the other side. Yeah. What we can do is just get a little bit of kicker or accelerator and just give it a drop that on, blow off the excess. That will make it set up pretty much instantly. You do have a fraction of a second just to get alignment, but it pretty much sets up instantaneous, which is what you want. And we'll come back in here and we'll just put a dot more super glue, bearing in mind it will set up straight away because there's still the residue of the accelerator on that part. Right, again, take the lighter, burn off the applicator. Always be careful when you're using fire. Right, so there's the battery box holder. So this is the battery box itself. So we've got part A13 and A12. They simply glue together like so. So again, just touch and flow. And then we need to check the orientation. So the orientation is this way. And then this part will fit in here. It's a very snug fit. Fit it will. There we go. So make sure we're not breaking this handle off that we've just taken our time to put in. Make sure we're happy with that part. It's sitting where it ought to. Yep. So we can just come back here, and what we can do is put glue on 2 of the 3 ridges. I put my applicator, it's there. Of course, making sure you're putting it in the right way. Ridges to the top, so we can just put glue direct onto the photo etch here. In fact, we can probably just put it on with this instead of making work for ourselves. Just the cross in the middle. Again, orientate the part the right way, like so, and in there, yeah, it goes better that way around as it did the other. Right, that's glued in, and then we've got the two clips to put on, part J14. So it goes T-handle down. They are very small. So this, like I said before, this kit is definitely not a kit for a beginner. This is an advanced modeler's kit. Just when you're looking at the amount of detail there is on this thing, if you've not had a couple of reasonably complicated kits under your belt, you are not going to manage this at all. And there is no point investing in this kit unless you've, if you don't want to lose the time and the money you put into it. You want to get a good result out. So making sure they're nice and level. They're now glued in. We then turn it over and orientated that way. Now we've got K11, which I've already glued and cleaned the seams. Make sure you've got these the right way around. You've got an end that is slightly further through the retaining band straps. These should just locate in the holes, and they do very nicely. So just a touch of glue, and that will be them glued solid. You don't knock it out before you get a chance to push it firm. Second one. Now if you're going to super detail this, I'm quite sure these tanks will be linked to the air system of the truck. And they may well be piped together with hard line. So it would be very much worth getting a good reference material, and then you can take your time and get all the hard lines done on these things. Right, that's those parts ready to go. And they are to go here. Now, we're getting to the stage, these can go on. We need to be careful, purely because we want to make sure we can paint this as a sub-assembly. So we don't want to be putting parts on that are going to impinge us or our ability to paint. As it stands, we're okay at the moment. But if we're getting to the point where we're putting stuff on top of this and not going to be able to get underneath it, then we need to think, right, we'll need to keep that piece separate. Okay, so that's that done. We've done that, we've got this here. So that's this box here. So front goes on, touch and flow, gentle nudge. Got this part here which is G28, it looks like some sort of filter unit, maybe a fuel filter. And then we've got this part here, which is possibly a padlock, F38. It looks like one. And that just sits in there nicely. Yeah, that's a padlock. Well, there we go. Right. So now this part is supposed to sit above the fuel tank. And this is what I'm saying, we need to look at this carefully and think, are we going to be able to paint? So first of all, they all need to be level, which they're not quite at the moment. So that sits on there like so, and locates underneath. Might need to open some of those holes up that are a bit flashed over. Alright, I think we'll be able to paint it, so I'm happy to give it a go. I think we'll be able to get the angles to get the underside painted. It's not covering all of the tank. And without the cab on the top, then we'll definitely be able to get underneath it. So holding that in place, this is where you need your tweezers. Get the first fastening point in, get the second one in, and then we can maneuver the third one in. A bit more tricky. That's him. Right, now that's there, before we do anything else, we'll just run a bit of extra thin just along those fastening points. Check the look down the end. Yes, that looks nice and square. And then this one I felt like we were pulling it a bit, so we'll just put a drop in there just to make sure that's sound. Right, so there we go. We've got fuel tank, storage locker, I believe this is a fuel filter here, battery box, air receivers, and then this piece here I think is an air dryer. So it's coming on. Right, next part is the fifth wheel. So I'm just gonna, no, I'll leave it zoomed in. Let's bring that down a little bit. So we've got D37, and then we've got D12, we've got D38, so that goes there. That's a snug fit, which is fine. It's not saying to cement it, but I'm actually going to leave it uncemented for now. Then we've got D39, which is a looser fit. So I'm wondering, should they be the other way around then? Yep. Six and 2/3 maybe. It looks even either way you do it. Right, so that then locks into there and that locks into there. And what you should end up with is having that little bit of movement, which is what the real one does. So, glue and glue. Don't be shy with the glue. And just a gentle squeeze together. That's the first part. And it pops apart. Happy days. So we'll make sure that's level. Squeeze that together. Let it sit. Well, actually, no, we'll do this here. We've got G10 to put on. And G3. So G3 goes on the front by the looks of it, just here. So that fits on the front. Not just sure if it should be hanging in midair, but never mind. And that one must go somewhere, but where? There doesn't seem to be a natural aperture for it. Yep, not sure on that. These are the fifth wheel lock-in pins. So there's a piece that when you pull this lever, it comes in behind the pintle on the trailer gooseneck, and that holds the trailer onto the fifth wheel. And obviously these here are all grease channels. These are all packed with grease, so the gooseneck trailer pintle pad can just swivel as the trailer moves, but it still does not give me any clue whatsoever where that is supposed to go. So what we can do is we can turn the instructions over. I realise I've actually lost a little piece. Oh no, it's there. That's fine. We can turn the instructions over and see if they give us a different angle to show us how this goes together. Just sticking out the side, doesn't it? Oh, sticking out the side it's going to have to be then, isn't it? It's a shame they didn't give us a fastening hole for it. And for the life of me, I'm sure that is supposed to be stuck. I'm going to just chance it and trim that off. I'm sure that's supposed to be a lot closer down. And go easy because these parts are fragile. I've just managed to break it. Right, get that part back in there. There we go. That's better. That's supposed to sit flush there. We'll glue that in place. Whilst we've got it here, a bit of glue on the snap. Gently fold it back around and it will hold itself in place. Right. Must be riveting viewing for you guys. I might cut this out. I think what I'm going to do is find a drill bit the right size. I'm going to drill a hole here because it'll make a better fit. Probably something around that size, maybe. Yep, maybe. Right, looking at this, it looks like it's going in roughly about here. So start at an angle just to get it to bite, and then we can move the right angle Don't need to go all the way through, we just need to get a depression in the plastic to fit that part. And there we go. Hole's maybe just a fraction too big, but doesn't matter. That kind of looks like where they wanted it to go. So we can just let that dry whilst we turn our attention to, I need to cut those parts off the sprue, I haven't done that yet. But what we do have here is we have J8. J8 goes here and here. I think what I might actually do though is attach those two parts to here first. So being mindful of the sprue tab for sticking to the chassis. And keep them both the same. I'll drop extra thin. That's a bit nice and quick. Right, so we can now turn this over. It's getting to the point I'm struggling to find places to grip this. We can hold it on the fuel tanks. So that part there just goes straight under there. So we can just get some glue on the chassis. And just position that one in its place. It's a bit of a loose fit, but it's there. A bit of extra glue just to help the bond. There we go. And then we've got this tank here, which goes here. That should be a simple enough fit. Yep. So just touch and flow with the glue. And it should just melt its way into position. Been a bit stubborn, that one. There we go. Bit of flash there. The glue's melted it. Right. And we've got this piece here to go in here. So we'll just apply some glue directly to the part and we'll just slot that fella in there. Always take your time when you're putting these parts on that don't have a huge contact area to make sure they're square to the chassis legs. You will get a bit of working time on the glue with these, and even once they're reasonably set up you still have a bit of play of movement, but it's always good practice to try and align the parts as best you can before the glue does start to cure. Right, I need to make that part there. This is J22 and J12. So we get the J sprues, here they are. So this is the fifth wheel attachment point. J12 is here. So we are getting less parts on the sprues and more on the model, but by God, it's taking its time. 12. Scalpel. So again, a bit of burring to take off here. Scraping it with a scalpel will be the easiest, quickest and cleanest way of doing it. And remember, I've been doing this for years, so I'm confident enough to scrape towards myself. If you're not, don't do it, because scalpel blades are sharp and they will cut. That's my public service warning done. Okay, check for flash on the other side. So this is the theme of this truck, is clean up, and more clean up. If you want to build this kit, be prepared to have to clean up parts. Again, yeah, you pay a lot of money for it. Shouldn't maybe have to do all this work. However, we are. And if you want to build an Oshkosh in this scale, this is the only kit you're going to get. Right. So, how is that going? Quite sure there's no indexing marks on this. And how this part goes in. Is there? Oh yeah, there is. I stand corrected. So it just fits in there. Drop a glue. Nice. Same again on this side. Drop a glue. Right. So now we have to get that to that to that. And then we're done for this episode, I think. If I've not bored you to death. So this part goes on here. So we'll glue one side on. Touch and flow. Good strong joint. And then we've got this part here. Yeah, looking at that drawing, we have got this in the right place, so that's fine. Like I said though, it's a shame they didn't have a pilot hole for that part. So that goes there, and then this part here should clip into the chassis hole. Chassis hole in the chassis rail, and then lock in to the fifth wheel pivot, which it does. Touch and flow, and away to go. So that's the fifth wheel in place, and because we've not used any glue, it's still movable, but you can see the lobes on the fifth wheel just nicely meshing in with these guiding landing legs. I don't know what you call them, but it looks really rather good. So that is stage 12 done. We're now on to stage 13. So we've already done that bit. We've done the small fuel tank, so we've got this piece to do. I've already done that bit, so I'm ahead of the game there. So after that we're on to the wheel arches, which I think will be in the next episode, because it'll be wheel arches together, wheel arches on, and then we're starting onto the cab base, which is fantastic. How many more parts have we got to do? Oh, goodness me. So we're looking at what? 29. And we're at 15, so yeah, another 14 steps to go. That's not too bad. So we'll leave it there for now. Our chassis is coming on rather nicely. So we've got all the fuel tanks on, we've got the fifth wheel on, all the axles on, all the axle drivetrain on, and it is just a very solid lump of a model. So next one is we'll come back and complete the wheel arches, and then we'll start going on to the chassis cab, which is excellent. So until next time, guys, if you've got any questions, comments, suggestions, hints and tips, please put them down below. Appreciate all the time taken to put questions and comments down below, and I will answer them all. And as always, if you like what you see and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really makes a difference to the algorithm, and I really appreciate it. So until next time, guys, stay safe and happy modeling.